Hey guys, it's Jacob from the Mr. Addiction podcast, and we have a guest on today named Devin, and I'm really excited to hear her perspective. Again, we're trying to raise awareness about addiction through the reality of those who have lived it. Devin, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. If I'm honest, we had to start this interview over, y'all, and I'm trying not to be frustrated because pretty much like any recovering addict, when things don't go my way, I kind of turn into a mini toddler. So we're going to move forward and press on. Devin, what would you say is your overall experience with addiction?
So I have experience with growing up in a household where there was addiction, alcoholism, and then myself went through about a 10-year addiction. And then also, I had my siblings that went through addiction. And so I've kind of got experience on both sides.
Okay. And I know we have talked about your sister and the things that have gone on with your family relating to addiction. Could you maybe describe to us what it's like to have a family member who struggles with addiction?
Yes, it's absolutely heartbreaking. I think, one of the worst things that you can, watch and not be able to help. You can't. I mean, you can help them in the point of, supporting them, but it's hard to watch them, not be able to ask for the help, or not want the help. And so the things that we can see on the outside, they can't see for themselves on the inside. So, they're actively dying because essentially that is what's happening. I mean, they're actively going towards their possible death. And so it's really hard to watch them go through that and go through the terrible things that they go through during their addiction. And there's nothing that we can do to stop it. And that's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's, and I'm sorry. And we had talked earlier, just my experience with that and yours. And it is devastating and it's heartbreaking, and you almost have to stand at a distance and watch it.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads me into this. This is something I've seen on the page in the comment section. I'm not surprised by it, but I would like to address it with you. What do you have to say to people who are kind of brutally harsh towards addicts or people who have addicts in their family that struggle? What would you say to those people?
Well, first of all, I can understand the frustration that they have with them. I mean, watching somebody completely destroy their lives and them not listening to the advice and, the encouragement to get better. But I wish people would understand addiction more, or if they have a family member that is addicted, to really, do some heavy research on it, because, I mean, the person that is using the drugs, the person that's addicted, their brain is not functioning the way a person's brain would function without having an addiction. So their right and wrongs are completely different than our right and wrongs, And so I would just want them to try and understand addiction a little bit better, because, even though the addict, I mean, it seems like the addict really doesn't think that they have support, because it's not the things that they want from you, like, they won't give me money because they don't care. They won't let me stay there because they don't care. All of these things. And really, they're not understanding that we're not giving them money because we know that could be, the money that sends them over the edge and kills them, and I definitely wouldn't want that on my conscience, but there's ways to support them without being mean and harsh and completely cutting them off. Because once you cut them off from, the only real support that they have, what do they have to look forward to? what do they have? What kind of support do they have? They don't have any support anymore. And a lot of times, I mean, that's the small little thread that's holding them on, is that to know that they do have support. And once you take it away, like, what do they have to live for or to get better for? I mean, I feel the same way about, and this is probably controversial, but not only have I had, close family members that have been addicted, I've also taken in about 15 children that are not my own in the past 20 years due to their parents having an addiction problem. And it just, in as long as the child is not in danger with their parents, I don't understand why people cut them off from seeing their kids. Well, if you're not going to get better, then you can't see your kids. When really, that's all that an addict cares about is their children. And once you take that away from them, then they don't care, anymore. They don't care. And so out of all of the kids that I have taken in due to their parents being drug addicts, I never told them no, that they couldn't see them, ever. I mean, it was a controlled, supervised visits or whatever, but I never told them that they could not come and see them, ever. Because not only does that damage the parent, no matter if they're trying to get better or not, I mean, that adds just more mental health issues for them. It also damages the child because they're not being able to have a relationship with their parent, and so that, I think that also goes along with, what I would want people to know who have family members that are in this situation, and they just decide that, they're done with them, or, that I wish that they would understand that, because like I said, addicts' brains do not work the same way as somebody who's not, doesn't have an addiction.
Yeah, and I that's part of my frustration in dealing with addiction in any way is I understand why people criticize it if you don't understand it, but I think it's in our culture still a problem of dehumanizing people who struggle with drugs and giving the quickest, the laziest, and the most brutal punishments, which is, like you said, we're going to cut them off from everyone. And I'm not saying you have to fork out money to that person and enable, but I agree with you. I think not communicating with people is too brutal, too harsh.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. That I think that's the cruelest thing that you can do to an addict.
Yeah, it is. And what's funny is you even see that in treatment programs. When you leave, not all of them, when you leave certain treatment programs and you mess up, you're not allowed really to speak to anyone there, and they're not going to speak to you, even though, just a matter of 90 days ago or however long the program is, those people were in the same boat.
Right.
And so I think, we don't even have time to go over all the reforms that need to be made.
Right.
In addiction, but I just, so it's not all negative. I know a lot of great rehabs and people out there.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I just, so my next question is kind of it's one I like to ask people every once in a while, but I wanted to lay it to you. Did you, at what point in your life did you plan on being an addict and wake up and say, that's what I want to do?
I never woke up and said I want to be an addict, ever. It's just something that was, I guess, to help. And at the time, because I was a teenager, I didn't even think of it as it helping my mental health, because I didn't understand mental health at that point. But yeah, no, I never woke up and said, oh, I'm going to be an addict today and potentially ruin my life. It was just something that happened, like at a party or, with friends, and you see these other people doing it, and then they offer, you're like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll do it. And then, and not understanding really the consequences that even though I saw it with my own eyes, because my parents were drug addicts, I still didn't think that would happen to me. that I can control it. This is just fun. This is fun. And it's just hanging out with my friends and, kind of the whole risky, like being secretive and not getting caught and stuff like that. I mean, it was just fun to do at the time.
It is. What's funny is I word that question that way because it's always interesting to hear people's response. But everyone I've asked that question to always says they didn't plan on it. And my point is that, I think it is. We have, one of the interviews on the channel from a mom that says the three most ignorant words in the English language are not my child, and
right. Yep.
And like you said, like no one plans on it, but once you're in it, you're a slave to it. And
yep.
That's why I do think, without getting into the science and all of that, it is a double-edged sword because we're sick, but we also are selfish and hurting people. And I just wish people would have more compassion. And maybe I'm biased, but I just don't. I think the brutal war on drugs and, lock them up and do everything you can it's just not working, and it hasn't worked. It's
not. The war on drugs is the most ridiculous thing when it comes to addiction. I mean, it's the same thing as, a family member, a parent, or a sibling or whoever, says, I'm going to just cut this person off because they're not doing what I want them to do. I mean, if you tell a patient with cancer, well, you're going to have to just get better. Like, you're just going to have to get rid of the cancer. That's not going to happen. And it's the same thing with addiction. Because when addiction turns into mental health issues, which it does, because like I said, it alters your brain chemicals and your neural pathways and all of that, it becomes a disease that you can't just get rid of. And so when the government or the lawmakers or whatever, I mean, it's the same thing. It's our country or whoever, other countries or whatever. Well, this country with the war on drugs, it's like a parent telling a child, well, too bad, you did this. Now here's your consequences. We're cutting you off, and then the government's going to put you in jail, and then you're not going to have any support then either. So, I mean, it is exactly what you say, that people don't have compassion. They don't. And it's really, really unfortunate, especially how now we have more people know about addiction than they didn't, before. And so it just amazes me with all of the information that's out there and the scientific tests and whatnot, how it's proving to be something that is not controllable. And it does end up being a disease that people don't have more compassion over that. They just want to stay stuck in their ignorant thoughts of, no, that's not right. It's not a disease. They're making a choice to do it, So, the compassion is lacking, and the war on drugs and treatment and all that needs a very big overhaul.
Yeah, and then I think you have tribal treatment, what I call it, where, if anyone disagrees about anyone, it's like we demonize those people and we jump in our own camp. And you know what? I'm a little bit that way too. And nonetheless, whether people think it's a disease or a choice, or if it's a mixture of both, like nonetheless, despite all that, I think it's such a brutal reality in when you actually live with somebody who has it or you have an addiction. And that's the side people can't see. You know what I mean? Like, we're people. I have people I love, dreams and goals, and I didn't plan on it. And I'm not a total victim to it because there's parts of it I love. But I don't think I've ever been treated worse than by somebody who thought I was less than them because I struggle with addiction.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that you've been treated like that, because it's hurtful. I mean, something that, again, it's like, treating somebody with a disease that, a cancer or, diabetes or, anything that they don't have control over. It's the same thing. To me, it's the same thing. Oh, the only difference is that one started out with a choice, you know?
Right.
So,
Well, yeah, that kind of leads me into the next question for you. And we'll switch gears just a little, but
okay.
what could you describe to me the hardest part about being addicted to drugs? What that is to you?
I think it's the wanting to get help and not wanting to be an addict, but you don't know how because the drugs lie to you. Basically, they lie to you, and or people are afraid of the withdrawal. There's a lot of people that don't, they don't want to get better because they're afraid of the withdrawal, which are horrendous in some of the cases. But I think the most thing for me, it was wanting to get better, but it not happening. Because I know for me, I had every intention every day of not using, anymore. And I wasn't on, I don't know, people that don't have addiction are not going to understand this, but I mean, I was on cocaine and it was my drug of choice because it was, fairly easy. Once I got it in my head, it was fairly easy for me to stop doing it. I mean, it took a few times, of course, because I would say, okay, let's do it. But I think that is the hardest part is I'm trying to think of how to word it, is having the want to do it, but then not being able to do it for whatever reason, for not being strong enough to say no.
Right, having the desire to quit, but not the ability.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, it's torture. It's torture, and I remember there's times where I've damn near had tears in my eyes, like taking a drug or drinking and knowing what it was going to do, and
yes.
But feeling like such a slave to it,
Mm-hmm. And the guilt for being like, why did I do this again? Like, what is wrong with me? Why do I keep doing this? And just feeling guilty.
Yeah, the guilt and the shame are major driving factors, in it, which again is why these people who get online and say things like, oh, they deserve to die, let them overdose, and
yes.
They don't understand, like, you're actually killing people when they read that in the comment section because these people already struggle with it,
And they don't care either. They don't care because, one less junkie makes the world better,
Yeah, you know what? I'd rather be a junkie than have that kind of outlook on life.
I would too, 100%. I could never hurt. I could never say something, and honestly, I could never say something like that to somebody, ever. My conscience would just eat me up. Like, I couldn't, I don't know. But, some people don't have the same hearts as others. I don't know.
Right.
And they weren't maybe raised around somebody that had an addiction problem.
Yeah, for sure. I know, like, usually it's ignorance, you know what I mean? If not laziness, because people don't want to take the time to look at it. But I just wish less people would give their opinion about topics if they don't know what they're talking about.
Right. Ask questions.
Yes.
Ask questions. I'm an open book. I don't care. You can ask me, whatever you want, and I'll give you the honest answer. I'm not going to be mean about it, but I would rather people ask than just a straight, I hope they die. Like, even if it's a question that I think is stupid, like, why don't they just stop? That gives me the opportunity to talk to them and educate them about how addiction works.
Yeah, you're exactly dead on that. Well, I know your sister's story is real close to your heart, and I wanted to ask you, could you tell us what happened with her, but also maybe describe her memory to us?
Absolutely. I would. That's my favorite thing to talk about is my sister. So I'll make a kind of long story short. I mean, I've already kind of, spoke about, we grew up in addiction, in an addiction household. Me and my sisters, I'm not trying to air out their business, but there was a lot of bad things that have happened to us as little girls, being in a household like that with people, men coming in and out. So we already had, that against us. We had, the addiction running in our genes. Like, I mean, we've had, several people before us have had, it's in our blood, basically. And so my sister, she had kind of dabbled in drugs here and there. And then it wasn't anything super serious. I mean, doing drugs is serious, period. But speaking from an addict standpoint, there wasn't anything that was super serious that was destroying her life. Like, she could pay her bills, she could, hang out. It was like a social thing. And then my father was not in the picture. He left when I was 9 years old. I'm 45 now. My sister, she's 6 years younger than me. And so my dad left when I was 9. And so that, would have made her 3. And so she really kind of didn't have a whole lot of memory of him. Well, then in my late 20s, I decided, actually, when I decided that I wasn't going to use anything anymore, I decided that I wanted to find him and get in touch with him. So I did, and we had a really great relationship, and he really wanted to, have a relationship with Heather. My sister's name is Heather. And she didn't want it at first. Like, she was hurt, which is totally understandable, just like a lot of kids that grow up without their other parent or their father, or their mother, in that mindset of, he's just a piece of crap, and why didn't he want to be around me, and this and that. So, I mean, those are the kinds of feelings that she had. So, he would try and apologize, and, he was also on drugs. And so his mind wasn't to be, in the family unit. He wanted to be out in the streets and, doing what he was doing. And so he tried to apologize to her and everything. And, she would really treat him kind of bad. She would ask him for money and stuff. And if he didn't have it, then, she would pull out the whole, you're a piece of crap. And, that's why you're not around me, and just really mean things. And she was about 30 when this happened. No, she was 25 or 26. So my dad had gotten cancer, and they had only given him about 2 months to live or so. And he was over in Arizona, and we're here in Texas. And so we flew out to go see him when he went into the hospital. And she had decided, that she didn't want to waste any more time. And she finally had forgiven him, right before the cancer diagnosis is when she had finally started forgiving him. And so we went to go see him. He was in the hospital, not doing well. And he had parked right up because he hadn't been awake in like 3 days. And that's why they told us we needed to fly out there to come say our goodbyes. But when we walked in to the hospital, myself and my 3 sisters, she was the last one in, and she said, "Hey, Dad," and he woke right up. It was crazy. The nurses and the doctors were pretty amazed. They were like, "I don't understand how this is happening." But anyway, so he still had the diagnosis that he wasn't going to last very much longer. So we spent a couple of days there with him. He was moved to a hospice center. And so my sister really got to know him and, and be with him. And they had a really long talk, and he had told her, I'm so sorry that I left you before, and now I'm leaving you again. And that broke her. And within about 2 months, he passed away, I think 3 weeks later. And then within 2 months after that, my sister had discovered heroin. And that was the beginning of the end. She passed away on October 5th, 2020, of mixed toxicity of heroin and methamphetamines. And that is the hardest thing I have ever been through in my life. It still is. Her babies she has 3. One of them is older. She's 16. But then she had little babies. She had a 2.5-year-old, and the baby was 11 months. She turned 1 year old 2 weeks after my sister passed away. And so to lose my sister, I mean, we were always scared it was going to happen, and we didn't think that we would be shocked, but we were shocked, like that. And so, oh, sorry, hang on. The world lost the light. Like, before my sister was on, even while she was on drugs, she was so funny and so fun. And once she came in the room, everybody is happy, And she's one of those people, if someone were to ask, well, who's there? That question, who's there, so they can decide if they're coming or not. If it was Heather, then they're like, yep. Or I'm not coming unless Heather comes, or, So the ways that it has affected us is I now have custody of her babies. I had just started a brand new career I just finished my EMT, and I was going forward with paramedic school, which I didn't get to do because I got the girls. And just to, watch them. The older one, she's 4.5 now. She remembers her mommy, and she remembers, the fun things that she did with her and stuff. And now, the way that she has to talk about her mommy being in heaven, like if she's on a swing set at the park, she's yelling up to the sky, I love you, I miss you, mommy. And it's just heartbreaking. And then with the little one, she doesn't remember her mom. All she's going to know is what we tell her, and we talk about her every single day. There's not a day that goes by that we don't talk to them, because I don't want them to forget, and then as far as my other family members goes, the heartbreak, that's obvious. That's a given, But so my son, he is 21 now. And so he was 18 at the time, I believe. I can't think right now. Yeah, 18. I didn't know, but he had a problem with fentanyl before this happened. And so 2 months, almost exactly 2 months later, my son overdosed on fentanyl, and he had to be on a ventilator. He had CPR and the whole thing. And so, I had talked to him about it afterwards. I'm like, you would think seeing your favorite aunt pass away from a drug overdose, you wouldn't want that to happen to you. And he said, yeah, but I was so hurt that I just didn't care, and so it affected him that way. Thankfully, thank God, thank whoever in the universe, that was the kick in the butt that my son needed to get clean, and he's been clean ever since then. He went to rehab, and he's doing fantastic. So thank God he made it out alive, but it's just death of a sibling or any family member, due to drug addiction, something that could have been helped, it's horrendous. It's horrendous. Like there is not a word that I can say that describes what it made us feel like and what we still feel like. We struggle every single day with the loss of her. There's just an empty hole where she was, and the grief that catches you off guard. You'd be having a good day or whatever, and then all of a sudden you remember, I'm not going to see my sister ever again, and that hurts. It hurts really bad. It hurts really bad. And I always, because I was kind of the harder one on her. I never cut her off or anything like that, but she knew that I would not put up with her crap. And so at the end of her life, I believe it was the day before, she had texted me and she was starting out the conversation like she was going to ask me for money. This is something I'll regret for the rest of my life. And so I was kind of short with her, and I was at work. I was short with her. I'm like, yep, that sucks, you know, kind of blowing her off a little bit. And then the next morning she passed away, and she never asked me for money. So, the guilt that I feel, even though I know that none of that was my fault, the guilt that the families are left with, like I should have done more, I could have done more, you know, it's there and it'll be there forever. And it just sucks. It tears the families apart. I mean, if an addict thinks that they're not loved, I mean, that is a total lie that the addiction tells them, because it's not true. Like we had, you know, we did her funeral and I was very open about her addiction and how she died, because we knew that there was going to be a room full of current addicts. And so we wanted to make sure that we touched everybody that we could to let them know, hey, you know, you might not be happy with how your family's treating you, but I can guarantee you that they love you, and that is why they're doing it, you know, because if we could help one person get better, then my sister's death wouldn't have been in vain. And so that's, you know, I could talk all day about how it's affected us. And I mean, she was just a great person. She would be, while she wasn't on drugs. Now, while she was on drugs, she got herself into some pretty good trouble. But again, that's not the person that she actually was. That was the person that the drugs turned her into. But she was just great. She would give you the shirt off her back. She would make you laugh. Like, she was so goofy. I know that I can't really cuss, but we had a nickname for her growing up all the way till now. We called her Deputy Dipshit because she was so gullible and so, like, you could tell her. I told her one time she was cooking a tortilla on the wrong side. And she was, you know, thought it was, she was like, well, how do I know which side to cook it on? She was just super funny and super gullible. And I mean, if she was around, we were laughing. All the kids adored her, you know. So her loss is felt by all of us. And it just, I wouldn't wish this pain on anybody else ever.
Yeah, you know, just listening to you and getting to know you, I know it impacts you a lot, and it's heartache, you know, and it's sad when they die, because even though you know it might be coming, they're just suddenly gone. And I think this is good too for the audience, man. You know, while we're raising awareness, that it's, you know, people out there need to understand these are moms and dads and someone's son, someone's daughter, and when we get on there and we say hateful things about them, you know, it's not just them. They're not just dead, and so you can get on there and say what you want. It's these people's kids read these comment section and stuff, and we just got to do better as a society.
Yeah, absolutely. Because not only, you know, whenever you have your person pass away, it takes away your past, your present, and your future. You know, because that, like with my sister, I grew up with her. I've known her entire life, you know, and so there goes my past. I have the memories, you know, but there goes my past, the present. She's not here. She's not here to be with her kids, and it takes away the future because I can't, you know, we'll never see her again. And it also takes away the hope that they will get better. Like, it takes away being able to, you know, be happy that they finally got better. Like, that's gone. That's out the window. I know they're better in a sense because, you know, when you pass away, that's it. All the hurt and the disease and, you know, all of that goes away. But we would much rather her be here and that happen, you know, instead of having death take care of it.
Right. So, yeah. No, you're right. Well, we're going to wrap up. We're a little bit on our time limit, but I just really appreciate you and everything you said. And
Yes, sir.
your sister's life is not in vain, because it's just a story that's used to deter other people from going down the same path. And
Yeah.
I'm just very sorry to you and your family for the heartbreak. And
Thank you.
thanks for coming on. So, guys, you can check out the full interview on YouTube on the Mr. Addiction channel. We'll be cutting them up and putting them on Instagram, TikTok, other places. And we ask that you follow us and share the videos, not so we can feel better about ourselves, but so we can spread awareness. We've got 150 plus people dying every day from fentanyl overdoses, and we have to get the word out. So until next time, guys, take it easy.